Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to share with you 5 tips for beginner guitar players and also relevant for people that have maybe been playing for a few months, or if you've been playing maybe up to a year, just things to think about. These are all things that in my years of teaching the guitar that I think crop up quite a lot. I get asked about a fair bit, and things that I think you should really think about in the early stages to really help maximise your progress. So if you find it useful, please give it a thumbs up and maybe consider sharing it with some of your friends who are maybe just starting out with a guitar, and subscribe to the channel for more regular videos. So let's get on with these tips. So tip number 1 is to choose the right guitar for you. What I mean by that is, don't think that you should buy a specific type of guitar because somebody's told you that an acoustic guitar is the best thing to play at the beginning, or an electric or a classical with nylon strings. There's no real right or wrong answer to the question of what guitar you should buy first. But I think it should be about what kind of style of music you're either inspired by or things that you'd like to be able to play in the future. You know, that kind of thing should really inform the type of guitar that you go out and buy at the beginning. So if you're interested in rock music, or you're inspired by rock bands, or that's the style of music you can see yourself going towards in the future, then an electric guitar is going to be an ideal choice for that. Whereas if you just want to pick a guitar up and strum a few songs at barbecues in the summer and play a few sing-along songs with your friends and family, then an acoustic guitar is the obvious choice for that. And so, both have their pros and cons. An acoustic guitar is slightly bigger in body, so it can be a little bit more difficult to deal with in the early stages, whereas an electric guitar is much slimmer in the body, and usually can be a little bit easier to play. But obviously with an electric guitar you also need an amplifier, a cable, other things to make it make a sound, so it makes it less portable. So again, pros and cons on both sides. As far as budget goes and as cost goes, you can be kind of looking at the same sort of money for both. What I would say is, don't buy the cheapest guitar you can possibly find, because more than likely it's going to be really hard to play, really difficult to play, not very well set up, won't stay in tune very well. So if you can spend a little bit more money on something reasonably good, so somewhere in the region of £150 maybe for your first guitar, that's going to get you a great instrument. If you get a chance to go to a local guitar shop, maybe try a few things out, see what feels comfortable. It has to feel kind of nice when you play it, sit down and play it. A guitar shop, the people in there are going to give you some great advice and really help you out, so don't be daunted by it. They're there to help. And that would definitely be something I would advise you doing as well. So yeah, choose a guitar that is comfortable and that is something you see yourself playing in the future. So tip number 2 is to buy and use a tuner. And I mean use a tuner every time you play the guitar. So it might seem like a fairly obvious one, this, but I think that definitely I see people where they're not necessarily tuning up the guitar every single time they play it. And that's really, really important. When you're learning and you're kind of experimenting, learning chords and things like that, you want to make sure that the guitar's in tune, so that you're not thinking that it's you that's at fault for anything that sounds a bit iffy, when it actually could be the guitar. I'm talking about tuning rather than things like string buzz and that kind of stuff. They're all things that you're going to come across in the early stages anyway. But yeah, buy a tuner. You could be a clip-on tuner, an app, there's pedal tuners for electric guitars. Any of those are going to be really, really useful. I'll put a link in the description below to a couple of clip-on tuners that I think would be worth checking out, so maybe have a look at those. But yeah, use a tuner. It's going to make a big difference going forward. So tip number 3 is to plan your practice to stay motivated. Really important on this. I think this is make or break really for the first few months especially. Plan out a time every day that you can sit down and play the guitar. So I'd recommend that you try and do 20 minutes a day for 5 days a week at least, to get you started, and do it regularly. So you want to be nice and spread across the week rather than trying to cram in 1 hour a weekend, for example. You're going to see a lot more progress if you do little and often. And also think about what it is that you're trying to achieve in each practice session. So you might have a new chord that you're learning, or a riff that you're perhaps playing, or a new song. Whatever it is, just have a goal for that particular practice session, and you'll find that will keep you much more focused, and it will keep you motivated to keep going through the week. Another good idea is to record yourself. So record yourself, maybe once a week, once a fortnight, so you can listen back to where you were and compare yourself to where you are now, and it really gives you a good indication of the progress you're making. Sometimes day in, day out, you don't perhaps notice the actual progress that you are making. Sometimes it's a bigger period of time before you start realising, actually, yeah, this is sounding a lot better. So definitely record yourself at sort of periodic intervals. One last thing on that as well is think about quality rather than quantity. So limit the amount of things that you're working on at any given point. That's going to keep you just focusing on certain areas and really helping you to develop good technique and good habits from the word go, rather than trying to rush through 5 or 6 songs at once. Focus on maybe 1 or 2 and chords and scales, and just getting good technique. The first days are so important for developing good solid technique, and so those should really help you out with that. So tip number 4 is to find a local guitar teacher. So I'm a bit biased on this one because I'm a private teacher and have been for many years, but I really think that having another human being to kind of see what you're doing and watch what you're doing can really help you avoid the pitfalls that some people can kind of come across in the first few months especially. If not, just a friend or a family member that can play the guitar or has been playing guitar for longer than you, somebody who again can point you in the right direction and help you to avoid any of the bad habits and the mistakes that people tend to make in the early stages. It's also really good for motivation, so a teacher especially can really help keep you motivated, reassure you that you're moving in the right direction, that you are making progress, and help you move forward. So yeah, that would be tip number 4. Final tip, number 5. Again, this can seem like a fairly obvious one, but this one is to listen to yourself. So when you sit down to practice and you're playing, you're learning your new chords or your song or your riff, whatever it might be, really listen to the sound of what's coming out of your instrument. Again, the recording yourself thing I mentioned earlier is a really good one for this, but on a daily basis, you want to be really aware of the sound that you're making when you play the guitar. I think very often what happens is, because you're focusing a lot on the physical aspects of playing, so where your fingers need to be, how hard you're pressing, all of those things, you actually forget a little bit to listen to the sound quality that's coming out. I think by being really aware of the sound that you're making, especially in the early stages, you can correct problems before they become a big issue and a bad habit. You can really kind of focus on, is that string buzzing? Am I muting notes out of this chord? Often the guitar will tell you what to practice just by the mistakes that you're making. And if you're aware of those and if you can really focus on those, hopefully that's going to help you to avoid any frustration further down the line. So finally, I'm just going to give you one little bonus tip, and this is to remove obstacles between you and the guitar. So what I mean by that is, if you keep your guitar in its case, under a bed, in a cupboard, you're creating obstacles between you and picking it up and playing. You're making the time and the process of getting ready to practice longer. So try and keep the guitar, whether it's on a wall hanger or standing on a stand in the corner of the room, somewhere where you can just pick it up and you're off and running really quickly. Same with electric guitars, if you've got an amp and a cable and the guitar, don't keep them all in separate places or pack your amp away every time you've finished. I know this might not always be possible, but if it is possible, keep the amp and the cable together and the guitar in the same room, so that all you've got to do is pick the guitar up, plug it in, and away you go. That's going to make it much easier to get your practice in, because you're not going to have to think, and it's 5 minutes just to set the stuff up. So that can really help. I know that's helped a lot of my students in the past by just removing obstacles. The other thing is, if the guitar's sitting in the corner of the room, you're much more likely to be tempted just to pick it up here and there and have a play, and that ultimately adds up to more practice time. So yeah, try that one out. I'm sure that's going to help you. So I hope you found that useful. These are all things that I think can really help you to maximise your progress in the first few weeks and months of playing. The guitar can be a frustrating instrument at first, but if you persevere, do that regular practice, little and often, I'm sure you're gonna overcome the frustration and get some real joy out of it. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up and maybe share it with any friends you have that have recently started playing the guitar themselves. Also, let us know in the comments for any of you that have been playing a little bit longer and have got some other suggestions for things that can help beginners. Starting a little community would be great, everyone helping each other out. And again, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for more regular guitar videos, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next one. Thanks for watching.